r/Airbnb hosts. Nez says, would you want to know how annoying a guest is in a review? I'm currently hosting a guest with 40 plus 5-star reviews and everything with the actual stay is fine. However, she's driving me nuts. She's quite conversational and seems to be dumping her stream of consciousness on me, like she's purchased me as a virtual friend for the weekend. I've gotten photos of items in my home, X-Fan remote, with what is this for? Messages, how is X restaurant, not on my recommendations list, why are pillowcases minimally wrinkly, I got sunburned yesterday, my family member has a record player too, I'm doing this today, have you heard of this bamboo TP brand, and more, and she just checked in last night. I've been hosting for almost 8 years, and this is the most annoying guest I've ever hosted. I'm sure she'll leave my home in great shape, and other hosts seem to find her incredibly charming. I'm also sure she would be a great guest for an in-person, social host, but as a remote host, I'm annoyed. I'm being professional/friendly, and am always grateful for the income, and I understand that this comes with the territory. However, would you fellow hosts like to know in future reviews that this guest will message you anything and everything she thinks of during her stay? I'm trying to review guests honestly, to look out for other hosts, and would likely host her again, but would this be a deal breaker for any of you determining whether or not to host? Turbulent Extent 962 says, I had a guest like this. I gave 1 star for communication, selected the something else field/flag, which is only visible to hosts and not to the guest, and in that 50 character field I wrote 60 messages in 2 days. Exhausting. Extra Historian 4999 says, I can't stand hosts giving guests like this 5-star reviews. When I get guests like this, I'm blindsided because her previous hosts were not honest in reviews. Thankfully, AirBNB rolled out a new feature where you can write a private note on their public review that only other hosts can see. Eternal Sunshinaklum says, that is a guest I just probably wouldn't review altogether. I wouldn't want to give her 5 stars because she's a pitter, but she also doesn't deserve a bad rating for being annoying if she leaves your house in good shape. I definitely would not reply to all her inane messages though. If she knows she has your attention, she'll keep going. K British English says, please let us know. Guests like this drive me nuts. I would say something along the lines of, guest was very communicative and let us know about every aspect of their stay, and were nice enough to point out all areas we needed to improve on, including wrinkled pillowcases. They took good care of our place, if they did, and checked out on time. I mean, I wouldn't destroy them, I would put in the good. But definition mention they are super annoying. Okislan 2015 says, if her only downfall is the excessive messaging, I would give a 5 overall and mark her down in communication. State in the review that guest is over communicative and could have found many of her answers in the listing details and house manual. Ridge Renapple says, absolutely, I would say something like she took care of my home but required extensive constant communication regarding everyday appliances and items. Eckenshold Buffen says, you don't have to reply, dude. Usual Law 2047 says, only reply to direct questions and shortest answer possible. i.e. what is this for? Turning on lights, have you heard of XZY? No. German Thoughts says, I think it does come with the territory of being a host. I make it a sport trying to keep up with chatty guests. As long as they leave your home clean and aren't aggressively demanding, I don't think you should ding them. What I often do is write something like this: very clean and extremely communicative guest. Thanks for staying, I'll give 5 stars, but other hosts will know that this is a chatty one and can reject them if they don't want to deal with it. Jim 5Bs 4 Aquater says, just don't answer the dumb questions. Ratatata 321 says, I had one like that recently, had about 20 questions within a few hours of him booking. Like, is there enough beds, or other things that were all in the listing, and where is the nearest X, Y, and Z. He then asked to cancel, and despite it being non-refundable, I let him cancel as I could imagine him being a pain as a guest. r/Airbnb hosts. Windabody1 says, guest wants full refund after stay due to smell they did not complain about until after leaving. The title basically says it all. Guest with zero feedback who asked for an early check-in at noon, which we granted, messaged me 2 hours after leaving and told me that they had to leave early because the house smelled unhealthy. We personally walk the house and inspect it immediately before the visits begin, and we film and photograph everything. The house was spotless. The house's footsteps from Long Island Sound, and that's really the only thing you can smell. I can objectively say it's extremely clean. The guest asked for a full refund and told me they barely use the house, even though they stayed for their entire booking, which was 1 night. In fact, they stayed 26 hours. Of course I declined the refund and I preemptively called Airbnb support to discuss this guest. How do you all deal with this type of situation? I find that people try to scam the system. Passerotto says, tell them to frick off but expect a bad review. Leave the guest an honest review telling other future hosts what happened. Most probably they will never be able to book a place again. OK Shelter 9702 says, even though they stayed for their entire booking, which was 1 night, and therein lies the problem. Make it 2 nights minimum stay and you'll encounter way fewer of those customers. Zoltan 8888 says, one of our properties has exactly 200 reviews. It's always been a 2-night minimum. There's been 4 reviews that were 4-star and the other 196 were all 5-star. We've only done a 1-night stay about 10 times, and every single 4-star review came from a 1-night stay. 40% of the time 1-nighter folks are unhappy. We think it's because they don't get to maximize their time at the property, therefore they don't feel the value that other guests do, even though the price is clearly displayed before booking, and they are the ones who only wanted to book for 1 night. I see anything 8874 says, I immediately heard Judge Judy's voice saying you ate the steak, so you pay. If the smell really was an issue they would have notified you right away and left. Sounds like they want a free night. Let them leave a bad review. You should be able to respond and say they stayed more than 24 hours for a 1-day rental. Lal Astram 1970 says, smell I didn't feel safe are common scams. Don't refund. Negat1 Veg says, I had this happen one time. They complained to Airbnb and got a full refund. I complained to Airbnb and got the refund reversed. Inv. Ilmerford 72 says, it isn't the Amityville horror house by chance, is it? Miss America 1819 says, we had an issue with our payout, and I was told by resolution department that we can deny a refund, and if they still refund for you to call ask for resolution and we will reverse it. He said, and I quote, your cancel policy, if they can early day, before stay etc is up to you not us. I replied, clearly some support aren't trained as well as you. He said, no they are not, I apologize, but call resolution and we are trained to correct bad support decisions. Yes, he said this yesterday. I have his name and plan to use it if this ever happens again to us where they refund without our permission. Star Twitch 30 to 28 says, I stayed 2 nights in an Airbnb this weekend, including last night. I just got home, and while it was a lovely stay otherwise, it also smelled unhealthy. Upon walking in, we immediately smelled old cigarettes and marijuana. In a beautiful $1 million loft. But since we arrived late, we ultimately decided we weren't going to contact the host about it. We simply opened the balcony windows and got to sleep. The next day we had several activities planned, so we didn't want to chance screwing up any plans with a hiccup at the Airbnb, so we stayed again. The host checked in on us midway through the day, but I didn't want to mention it and make things awkward. Ultimately, we stayed both nights and left a nice review with a short private note about the smell. Was it a bummer to deal with? Yup. But it is what it is. As a guest, I've put up with some imperfect stays simply because I don't want to ruin my short trip with awkwardness with the host or having to scramble to find alternative arrangements. Sometimes that makes me feel like I got robbed, but it's a liability of using a service like this. You can't really ask for a refund after staying. That's unreasonable. But I do understand their frustration, because I've been there myself. r/Airbnb hosts. Patanimo says, guest through a party, Airbnb is useless. I'm a new Airbnb host, we just listed our first property back in March. We had a guest book the property for 2 nights earlier in April. He said there would be 5 guests, our maximum guest limit is 8. Our stated policies include no parties, no commercial videography, and quiet hours start at 10 p.m. We disclosed that we have a doorbell camera and a camera overlooking the back deck, both for security reasons due to the remoteness of the property. All seems well, until about 9 p.m. the first night, when I get a noise complaint from a neighbor that's honestly pretty far off. I check the cameras. There are about 15 people on the deck blasting music and otherwise having a good time, with an unknown number on the inside of the house. I contact the guest through Airbnb and tell him he has to cease the party. He ignores me. I contact Airbnb, they try to contact him, no luck. Airbnb asks for proof of the party, I send them video clips. At approximately midnight, Airbnb cancels the reservation. The guest won't leave, so we had the cops remove him and everyone from the premises. Per our strict cancellation policy, we refused any refund, we were paid the full amount for the stay, $520, and I hope the matter was closed. Then, today, I check our account on Airbnb and see that it's at $0. Apparently, Airbnb is deducting the $520 from our account out of new bookings. They have offered no explanation, and trying to speak with someone knowledgeable about the situation at Airbnb is a Sisyphean task that results in me being on hold for hours at a time with someone from the Philippines. Any advice? I cannot believe that a guest who's caught red-handed throwing a party and then refuses to stop is somehow going to come out on top. If that's really how Airbnb operates, I'd rather just sell the place. Badams 187 says, the real losers here are the neighbors. Federal Asparagus 88 says, I'm currently going through the same. Had guest throw a party, left my house a mess. They broke some things, did an air cover claim for $500, and it's been a week no answer. Also tried charging for the extra guest. Customer service tells me the guest down answer. Obviously the guest is ghosting Airbnb, and they told me they can't charge him without him disputing it. So fucking dumb. Les Texan says, if it were me, I'd go down to the local district court and file small claims against Airbnb today. Had print copies of all correspondence and photo print of the party. Copy of police report, etc. It will be included in the filing. Airbnb will receive service by certified mail and must respond in 30 days, depends on your locality. Usually big corp pay immediately because it's not worth their time to show up to a court in Floyd's Knobs, Indiana. Alarm my cousin Vinny. Good luck. Eckenschold says, I'd continue to call Airbnb and escalate like 3 times before having any conversation with whoever picks up the phone first. Whenever I call Airbnb, you can bet it's already above the pay grade of the first 2 people in line. I usually have high success by calling and yelling for the next person and then yelling at that person until I get someone who actually sounds competent and with authority to overrule previous off-the-hip decisions. My Demongirl 11 says, don't speak with them via phone, chat only. It will be a frustrating exchange, but they will resolve. Also, write it out clearly in your booking that there will be a $0 fee for unauthorized parties. Airbnb will have to honor the fee if it's written out in your listing. Big Swinging Click says, how do you know they are deducting from future bookings? Not sure when you'd even see this. Sorga Couple says, Google the email of Airbnb seer and email that directly. Works like a charm. My Demongiral11 says, some of these comments are so nasty. I'm wondering if there's a therapy thread we can refer some of these people to. It's as if their lives are going so poorly they come to these chats to unleash on calm and respectful people. For a minute I thought this was an Instagram chat section, bravo to the author, who has continued to be poised, respectful, polite and extend grace to those emotionally challenged commenters. You do not need to sell. Continue to bring your complaints and concerns here, and report and block these very interesting people as I do. SpookUpUpper69 says, you also likely have the guest's license plate from the camera. You can also file damages against them in court. Since you are a lawyer, it should be simple. It sounds to me by your reaction that hosting a short-term rental house isn't right for you. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.